troubles continue to mount for Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida.
Well, a recently conducted poll shows the support rate for Kishida has plummeted. It fell to a fresh low of 22.3%, and this is after the latest rejig.
It's not just the leader, the ruling Liberal Democratic Party's popularity. It's taken a massive hit as it slid down 30%, below 30% in fact, for the first time since it returned to power more than a decade ago. Last week, Kishida reshuffled his cabinet to contain a funding scandal that threatens the future of his government.
Now, the results are not just by one select survey, but multiple polls hint at a decline in Kishida and his party's popularity. A survey by Mainichi Shimbun, conducted from December 16th and 17th, found approval of his cabinet had slumped by 5 percentage points from last month to 16%. Now, the lowest since he took office in October 2021. His disapproval rate rose to 79%, the highest since the newspaper started conducting such polls more than 7 decades ago.
A separate Nikkei survey found support dropped 4 percentage points to 26%, a level often seen as the danger zone for Japanese premiers. About 67% of respondents to the Nikkei poll said Kishida is responsible for the political funding issue, while 28% disagreed.
These ratings come despite Kishida replacing all 4 ministers belonging to the faction, including the chief cabinet secretary. The probe, which is at the center here, focuses on the funds raised by the biggest faction in the LDP that was once led by former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
The allegations say that the LDP's largest faction failed to declare more than $700,000 of fundraising party revenue in political funding reports. Kishida said that he would take steps to restore trust in his government amid the scandal. Earlier, he had stepped down as head of his own party faction while serving as prime minister. Now, for more on this, we're now being joined by our correspondent Chris Gilbert live from Tokyo. Chris, thank you so much for joining us on World Day.
Oh, good morning.
Now, Chris, of course, first things first, these are the lowest ratings in decades, in fact. And Kishida, he's already stepped down as the party chief. What's left? How do you see things unfolding going forward from here?
Well, Kishida has stepped down as the chief of his faction of the party, but there are questions that are lingering about his continual leadership of the party going forward, especially with polling this bad. Now, we have to remember a couple of things. The LDP has been largely in power in Japan since its formation at the end of World War II. It only lost power once, as you mentioned, about a decade ago, and some of these polls by these newspapers are the lowest for any leader of Japan since the party was formed. I mean, one more to add to the list is the latest Jiji poll, 17.1% approval rating and 58% disapproval. Now, the Prime Minister has grappled with low approval rating since he took over from Prime Minister Suga 2 years ago. He reshuffled cabinet then to kind of, clean the party from the stink that was still around from the chaotic Olympics and the COVID-19 pandemic. He reshuffled again about a year ago in 2022 because there were ongoing links between cabinet to the now in Japan disgraced Unification Church, and he kicked all the members that seemed to be connected out of his cabinet, but that didn't help. 30% approval rating on average throughout the year. Only 2 months ago, he cleaned shop yet again. The cost of living, stagnant wages, general hardship in the economy here contributing to low approval rating, and just 2 months later, 4 very prominent, powerful members of his executive have to leave their positions from that Abe faction because of this fundraising scandal. And media reports here are questioning if this isn't the early signs of the end of Kishida's leadership.
Chris, I just want to get your thoughts on this. As you mentioned that it could spell the end of Kishida's leadership. What happens next from here? Where does Japan go from here? Is there a next leader in line? What's next?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, the LDP, first of all, is no stranger to fundraising scandals. There are scandals and kickbacks all the way through the political dynasties and the families of the LDP stretching back to the 1950s. And so the smell of that is still all over the party and the public's point of view. The public is very disillusioned with the government at the best of times. But looking at specifics, you know, he has to go into the holiday period with this. This is going to linger around all the New Year's period going into the next year. It is going to affect policies such as boosting the funding for the self-defense forces. But looking ahead even further, the next election isn't until about the end of 2025. But before then, about 9 or 10 months from now, Kishida's leadership of the party is up for renewal. And so experts here, political scientists, are saying that he really wants to hold a snap election before then so the public can refresh his mandate before the party gets a shot at it. But with polling this bad, they say, the LDP will only bleed votes, Kishida will only weaken his position. They were thinking maybe after the budget is passed a few months from now he might call a snap election, but it's a real headache now. His polling's never been this bad. It's never been this close to home from him. It's been knock after knock. You know, the next leader is likely going to become from a different faction from the LDP.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for joining in. Always a pleasure to speak with you, and we'll be back for more updates as this unfolds further.